assistance or public transportation benefits. The flood risk management program is funded at approximately 1.6 billion in the budget and includes funding to provide technical and planning assistance to local communities to enable them to understand and to better manage their flood risk. The budget provides $350 million to restore several large ecosystems, including $250 million for the South Florida Everglades Restoration Program, and to support restoring aquatic habitat in ecosystems where the aquatic ecosystem structure, function, and processes have degraded. The budget supports a core program that has a diverse set of tools and approaches to working with local communities, whether this means funding projects with our cost-sharing partners, providing planning assistance and technical expertise to help communities make better informed decisions, or participating in the national and international conversations on how to best address our water resource challenges. The budget provides $100 million for urgent emergency response work following future flood-related major disaster declarations. The budget also focuses on maintaining the vast water resource infrastructure that the Corps owns and manages, and on finding innovative ways to rehabilitate it or hand it over to others. The budget promotes increased non-federal participation in the construction of civil works projects to improve project delivery and to increase cost savings. It includes $250 million in the construction account for the WRDA 2014 Section 1043 Non-Federal Construction of Federal Projects Program. The Corps would transfer this funding to non-federal sponsors who have decided to construct an authorized project on their own. The budget also proposes to extend the 1043 program authorization, which expired this past June the 10th, 2019. The budget also provides $250 million in the construction account for the Innovative Funding Partnerships Program. These funds would be used in conjunction with funds voluntarily provided by non-federal interests in excess of the non-federal sponsors' statutory cost share requirements to accelerate the completion of construction of authorized projects. The budget reforms the way that we finance capital investments on the inland waterways. The budget proposes establishing an annual fee that will support infrastructure investment and economic growth by helping finance the user's share of future capital investment, as well as 10% of the operation and maintenance costs associated with these waterways. The budget also reproposes to divest the Washington Aqueduct, the wholesale water supply system for Washington, D.C., Arlington County, Virginia, the city of Falls Church, Virginia, and parts of Fairfax County, Virginia. The budget reproposes revisions to the appropriations language for the construction, operation, and maintenance, and the Mississippi River and tributaries accounts, as well as the harbor maintenance and inland waterway trust funds to enable greater transparency and accountability in how these funds are budgeted and spent. The press book, which you have before you, hopefully you all had an opportunity to get those, reflects this by displaying the total account and project funding levels derived from each of these funds. In addition, the budget proposes to return responsibility for the management of the formerly utilized Sites Remedial Action Program, which is FUSRAP, known as FUSRAP, back to the Department of Energy. The Corps would continue to perform cleanup of FUSRAP sites on a reimbursable basis from DOE. The fiscal 2021 investigations program is funded at $109 million, including $6 million from the Mississippi River and tributaries account. $53 million is to fund studies to determine the need, engineering feasibility, economic, environmental, and social return of potential solutions for water and related land resource problems. The investigations account includes funding to complete one feasibility study at South San Francisco Bay Shoreline, California, 7 disposition studies, the Los Angeles County Drainage Area, California, Salinas Reservoir, California, Suzanne Channel, California, Peoria Small Boat Harbor, Illinois, pardon me, Cape Fear Locks and Dams 1 through 3, North Carolina, Savannah River below Augusta, Georgia, and Bayou Cocodrie and tributaries, Louisiana. 8 dam safety modification feasibility studies. Prado Lake, California, Garrison Dam, North Dakota, Keystone Lake, Oklahoma, Cougar Lake, Oregon, Foster Lake, Oregon, Green Peter Lake, Oregon, Hills Creek Lake, Oregon, and Lookout Point Lake, Oregon. Also 5 pre-construction engineering and design efforts at Bolivar Dam, Ohio, Proctor Lake, Texas, Puget Sound Nearshore Marine Habitat Restoration, also known as Duckabush River Estuary, Washington, Three Rivers, Arkansas, and West Sacramento, California. The fiscal 2021 construction program includes a total of over $2.2 billion. This includes funding for 11 commercial navigation projects, 6 flood risk management projects, and 4 aquatic ecosystem restoration projects. 7 construction projects are funded to completion in this fiscal year 2021 budget. They include 5 navigation projects: Boston Harbor, Massachusetts, Columbia River, the mouth of the Oregon and Washington, Jacksonville Harbor deepening in Florida, Mel Price Lock and Dam, Illinois and Missouri, and the Mississippi River Ship Channel, Baton Rouge to the Gulf, Louisiana, along with 2 dam safety projects, the General Edwin Jabwin Dam, Pennsylvania, and Whittier Narrows Dam, California. The budget also fully funds the highest priority work needed to address life safety risk at Raritan River Basin, Greenbrook Subbasin, New Jersey project. The fiscal year 2021 O&M program, operation and maintenance, is funded at $2 billion. For O&M, the budget emphasizes performance of existing projects by focusing on those coastal harbors and inland waterways with the most commercial traffic. The allocation of fundings for maintenance among projects reflects a risk-informed approach that considers both project and project component conditions and the potential consequences of a failure. The budget also makes important investments in the O&M program to levees, locks and dams, small and subsistence ports and harbors, and to promote the sustainable management of the lands around core facilities and helping to combat invasive species. The budget proposes to derive over $1 billion from the Harbor Maintenance Trust Fund to maintain coastal channels and related work. In conclusion, the fiscal year 2021 regulatory program is funded at $200 million to protect the nation's waters and wetlands and provide efficiency in our permit processing. I want to thank all of you for being here today. I will add to this that this budget doesn't show up on my desk one day and go out to here the next day. This is a process of working with the administration, with the Corps, and other interested parties to try to come up with the very best budget we can to get the most work done in this country that we can get done. If this money is all put inside this building and never sees air again, we're not doing our job. This money is to be used to build and improve and better the people and the water resources of this nation. And I hope that's what we do with it. I'd like to turn it over now to my comrade and good friend, uh, one of the most working men I've ever seen. You know, he's not only the commander of the United States Civil Works, the commanding general, he's also the chief of engineers for the Milcon. And I may get this wrong, you can correct me, but he wears two hats, and they're two damn big hats, and he fulfills his role very, very well. I'm constantly in awe of where all he does have to go and what he has to do when he can share the civil works function with us. And he seems to get that done day in and day out, regardless of his other responsibilities. Todd Semonite.
Hey, Mr. Secretary, thank you very, very much. And just ad lib on that last comment Mr. James had. You know, for Mr. James and I, there's an awful lot of things that we've got to deal with every single day. But the civilian experts we have that work in the Assistant Secretary of the Army's office, the Corps of Engineers, these people are absolutely committed to what they do every single day. They don't do this for a bonus in their paycheck. They don't do this for stock prices. They don't do this for any personal gain or rewards. They do this because this is the right thing to do for America. And so it's tough to be in our jobs, but having the teams that we have working side by side. We had somebody up at 1 o'clock this morning working changes in the Red Book just to be able to make sure we could publish it today. And so whatever we are trying to do is only because we have superstars that work for us. If you don't mind, let's give them all a big round of applause, okay? Ready? Good job. So thank everyone who's here today, and for all of those who have joined us on the phone. I'm pleased to be here with Secretary James and thank him for his remarks. We really appreciate his leadership in the Army Civil Works team and look forward to continuing to work with his staff to help address a range of water resource challenges across our great nation, including maintaining the key features of the water resource infrastructure that USACE owns. I also want to thank the headquarters and Mr. James' staff for their efforts in getting us here today. Rolling out the annual Civil Works budget takes a lot of cooperation and coordination between the Assistant Secretary's office and the Corps of Engineers to work in the many details of the President's budget. This is the last time that I will have the opportunity to present the President's Civil Works budget to you, as my time serving as the USACE Commander and Army Chief of Engineers is drawing to a close. During my almost 4 years of command, it has been my great privilege to have led more than 36,000 civilians and 800 soldiers who come to work every day with the best interest of the nation and our military as their mission. My travels have taken me to every USACE district and division where I've been able to see the vital work that the Corps of Engineers is doing at home and around the world. I couldn't be more proud of the men and women who serve in the Army Corps of Engineers and our teammates, including military, civilian, local, federal, and contractors who support us in achieving our goals. One of my main priorities while in command has been to challenge the enterprise to revolutionize the way that we do business. This does not imply that USACE is less than a world-class organization. Rather, it demands that we anticipate and respond to changing requirements and externalities like all world-class organizations. Successful Civil Works project delivery supports the nation's current and future water resource infrastructure priorities. Our credibility is measured by the ability to deliver results that are on time, on budget, and of exceptional quality. To that end, USACE has been taking bold actions to improve performance and continue to engineer solutions for the nation's toughest challenges. For more than 244 years, USACE has adapted to meet the challenges of the day, and our current efforts to revolutionize USACE simply represent the next chapter in this remarkable journey. Since the last Water Resource Development Act, I've signed 19 Chiefs reports representing more than $9 billion worth of proposed investments in the nation's water resources. Over the next several months, it is our goal to double that number as we continue to develop solutions to meet the nation's water resource needs. As all of you know, over the last few years, our nation has been challenged by many disastrous severe weather events, such as the hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, and wildfires. The flooding disasters which devastated the nation's heartland along the Missouri, Mississippi, and Ohio River basins this past year took a significant toll on many communities. USACE continues to repair and restore flood damage reduction systems to help those communities prepare for future weather events by rebuilding existing structures and enhancing resiliency using our supplemental funding provided by the administration and Congress in 2016 and 2018. And I want to continue to thank Congress for stepping up and to be able to approve those supplementals. We're in the process of putting that money in the ground right now, as Mr. James says, turning dirt to be able to put over $20 billion out where these communities need it in response to those recent storms. Throughout all these disasters, the outstanding men and women of the Corps of Engineers have stepped up to work with FEMA and other federal partners to help the people and communities affected by these events recover and try to return to normalcy. Hundreds of USACE teammates have traveled from their homes to the disaster areas, often for extended periods of time or for multiple deployments to help their fellow citizens in their time of need. In addition to all the disaster response support, USACE continues to perform as many other critical day-to-day missions both at home and abroad. One thing that I will say to you here today, and that I will try to stress wherever I can, is that I want the United States Army Corps of Engineers to be an agent for change in addressing the water resource infrastructure needs for the nations. We want to find ways to deliver water resource infrastructure solutions to the nation as effectively and as efficiently as possible, to be innovative and forward-thinking. USACE strives to be value-added to deliver solutions as the nation's engineers. Mr. James has provided an overview of the FY21 budget in his comments, and I will fill in some additional details. The FY21 Civil Works budget represents a continuing investment in the nation's water resource infrastructure and in the restoration of its aquatic ecosystems. It also reflects the realities of the nation's current fiscal status and the tough decisions that have had to be made to put the nation on a fiscally prudent path. And just to be able to reiterate, Mr. James mentioned that this budget is rolling out at $5.966 billion. I'll just remind you that last year the number was $4.964 billion. So this delta between last year and this year represents over $1 billion of more investment in our water resource challenges. The FY21 budget funds 23 projects, construction projects, comprising 12 commercial navigation with 4 funded from the Harbor Maintenance Trust Fund, 7 from the risk management projects, and 4 aquatic system restorations. I'm not going to reiterate them, but I do want to highlight Mr. James did say that 7 of these are going to be funded to completion. That's a big thing. Finish what we start. 5 commercial navigation and 2 flood risk management projects. And then a couple key navigation projects that we're really excited about. 123.2 million for Sault Ste. Marie, the replacement lock. 119 million for the Columbia River at the mouth, Oregon and Washington, and 100.4 million for Corpus Christi Ship Channel, main channel and barge lanes. And then in the flood risk management, just a couple of the top 3 that I want to reiterate. Whittier's Narrows, 384.9 million. Raritan River Basin, 157.5 million. And then the American River Common Features, 131.5 million. This budget also provides a total of $489 million for dam safety, seepage control, and static instability correction work at dams owned and operated by USACE. And then again, another very, very critical program for everybody in the Corps is ecosystem restoration. Mr. James highlighted about $250 million for the South Florida ecosystem restoration and $33.2 million for Upper Miss River restoration. And then he also highlighted the ones that we're going to do 5 pre-construction and engineering designs, but that's 21 different investigations, a total in this budget of over 36 investigations. So in closing, the proposed investments in the Civil Works program are positive investments in this nation's economic well-being. As we have done for more than 244 years, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is working to serve this nation. As we have over the past century or more, the Civil Works program is now focused on finding engineer solutions really for our toughest challenges. USACE will continue to be a key partner in the national dialogue concerning the many current and future water resource infrastructure challenges. We're committed to working with our many partners, many of who are here today, at the national, state, and local levels to find and deliver sustainable and long-term solutions. Our success in transforming Civil Works will ensure that the Corps of Engineers remains a valued partner and that the nation will have safer and more resilient communities and a more reliable and sustainable water infrastructure. Now I'll turn the press conference back over to Mr. Curry Graham for the question and answer period during which Mr. James and I are happy to take some questions.
One, two, test. There we go. All right, thank you, sir. A few ground rules before we get going. Members of the media, if you're in here, you will go first. The members of the media online with the operator will take questions from them next. And then we'll come back to the room for those organizations and associations that would like to ask questions, and then back to the operator for those organizations. And then we'll have time for some quick closing comments. If you don't get the answer to the questions that you are seeking, please feel free to get in touch with my office, and we'll get you the details. Anything that you want to follow up on, we're happy to do that. So with that, we'll open it up for questions here. First, let me check to make sure the operator is on. Operator, are you there?
Yes.
Okay, if you can begin queuing members of the media online and open it up to the floor for members of the media. Any questions? Yes, ma'am. We do have microphones, so if you can state your name, your organization, so we can have a transcript ready for you.
Hello, my name is Tia Mitchell. I'm a reporter with the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. And my big focus is the Savannah Harbor expansion project. But what I wanted to specifically ask, and any one of you who feel is best equipped, but I was reading your press release and it says the budget gives priority to those waterways and harbors that have the most commercial traffic. And I wanted to see if you all could expand on why that's a priority, knowing that Savannah Harbor does fit that.
So we're very excited about continuing to do anything we can to energize the economy. And harbor deepenings are one of those venues that continues to be able to take care of jobs, it takes care of the GDP. Unfortunately, we have so many different requirements in the Corps of Engineers that we can't maintain all the federal harbors. There's not just enough money to go around. So one of the main drivers as to how we figure out where the best investment for America is to be able to figure out where are some of those that are going to bring in either the most product, or a lot of times that means the most tonnage to be able to come in and out. So we normally, as opposed to spreading the money over so many different requirements, we have to have a mechanism for prioritization. And most of the time it does go back to where the largest number of products that are coming in and out of America that could have a correlation right back to the economy. Now, in Savannah River specifically, that's an extremely valuable harbor. There are many, many other harbors on the East Coast. I believe in this particular budget, Savannah Harbor gets about $93.6 million, something like that. Still has more work to get done, but a lot of investment that the Corps has made to be able to make this harbor able to bring through the big ships that now are able to transit the Panama Canal since the Panama expansion. T, does that answer your question? Okay, good. Thanks a lot.
Yes, ma'am. There's a mic behind you.
Hi, I'm Tamara Ward from E&E News, and I wanted to know why fund the South Florida Ecosystem Restoration Program at $250 million? Why is the Everglades so important?
That is a super complicated area. Uh, the Everglades are probably the premier uh, wild area in our country. Now, the other thing that's going on is we put the Kissimmee River above Lake Okeechobee back into its natural alignment. We dug it out straight several years ago. We've put it back into its natural alignment. We have actually repaired the dike of Lake Okeechobee that goes all the way around it to try to prevent a collapse in the case we get a major flood from a hurricane or whatever reason there. Now we're trying to introduce fresh water southward from Lake Okeechobee, southward, fresh water into the Everglades, rather than to the east and to the west into the communities that have had trouble with the algae blooms over the last, well, it's been forever, but it's been brought to the public's attention over the last 2 or 3 years. Now, well, why don't you do away with algae blooms? There's no way to do away with algae blooms. Lake Okeechobee is a shallow lake. I've actually fished on Lake Okeechobee, and it's 10 to 11 feet deep during normal pools. And if we hold the water higher than that in the spring to have a more volume of water in there to cut down on the algae, then we have a bigger chance of that dike being destroyed by storms. So then we go down to south of there. We're building what's called the EAA, and that's the new reservoir. The intent is to take water out of Lake Okeechobee into that new reservoir, let that water get filtered, settled, and then therefore send fresh water on into the Everglades. Now, back to your question of why. Why is because it's the largest uh, ecosystem in the United States. And right now the nation, not only the state of Florida, but the nation supports bringing that ecosystem back to where it should be in the Everglades Park and the other Everglades areas south of Lake Okeechobee.
And any part of that effort going towards combating land subsidence?
I don't know. The general will have to tell you about that. Some of the effort in the entire in that part of the world of Florida is the fact that of flood control over on the eastern coast of Florida with new dikes and levees along that area as well. That's all part of the system. I don't know about the subsidence.
Tamara, where we're seeing subsidence, it's in really in other areas. We can talk about more around the Gulf. The biggest issue down here, and the Secretary hit it right on. This is a unbelievably complicated system. So several years ago, we went in to be able to try to almost develop it. You know, this is 50, 60 years ago to be able to have canals and all the rest. And the biggest issue that we haven't said is the habitat. The habitat got infected, really affected very, very bad here. And there's several people in the room, and I have been in the Everglades for 12 or 13 times. What we're doing now is bringing back some of these species that have critical breeding areas down there. You also have American tribes down there that are it's very, very important to be able to take care of the Native Americans and some of their historic ways. And so this is ability to not only take care of the algae and the water flow, but to do that in concert with continuing to be able to bring back the habitat. And unfortunately, there's a dynamic where you have a lot of agriculture. Some of the agricultural bleeds water off, and that's not good for the habitat. So we're trying to do two or three things all at once. We're trying to continue to have some degree of navigation, obviously flood control, but a massive hydraulic system to be able to let the water go through to bring these species back alive that are so critical to our country. And there's also a big component of tourism back in Florida. It helps out the economy to a degree, but a lot of it, I think, goes back to what are we doing to make sure the species can stay alive and to be taken care of the right way. You got to come down and see our guys sometime and get out on an airboat, and we will be able to. Once you're in the Everglades, you can embody it. Okay.
And any other members of the media in the audience for questions? Okay, operator, are any members of the media online?
If you're online, if you can press #2 if you have a question.
Any questions?
I do have one question at this time. Caller, you may go ahead.
Hi there. Thanks for doing the call. This is Ben Hulak with CQ Roll Call. I'm just curious what and how specifically through this budget the Corps is doing anything to address climate change. And whoever answers this, if you could please state your name, that'd be very helpful for us on the phone. Thank you.
So this is Lieutenant General Semonite. Everything the Corps does is based on science and engineering. So we look at what's happening out in the world. We're very, very attuned to both studies that are going on, investigations that are going on. We're watching these natural disasters. And we're continuing to see the impacts. Our job is to be able to design, not for tomorrow, but to be able to design for several years out in the future. So when it comes to where we're seeing some demonstrated effects of some areas, especially when it comes to some of the flood control challenges and specifically some of the issues on the ocean, we can't ignore those. So we take a look at what are the ramifications of that, and how do we somehow build those into our long-term construction projects, so that regardless of what Mother Nature and where Mother Nature gets a vote, we're able to adapt. And again, we're mainly doing off this historical norms of what we are seeing and experiencing in some of the last 5 to 10 years. Climate change is a very, very complicated issue, but I think it's important for all of us in the federal government to continue to be open to what the threats that America faces, and to be able to make sure that we're proposing different solutions that could counter those threats.
Thank you, sir. Operator, is there another member of the media online?
Yes.
Question, please.
Caller, may go ahead. I'll move on to the next question.
Okay.
Caller, you may go ahead.
Hi, it's Tom Ikniowski with Engineering News Record. A couple of questions. What's the Corps' current estimate of authorized but unappropriated projects in dollars?
Hey, Tom, it's good to hear from you. Mr. Belk is sitting next to me, and he's pulling some numbers out right now. So we will tell you what that is.
Okay. While you're looking it up, I have another question for General Semonite. You had said in your comments that you have signed 19 chiefs reports for a total of, was it $9 billion in investment since the last WRDA was enacted, and you hope to double that. Is that double the 19 or double the dollars or both?
Well, we still have them coming in, so some of the final estimates are out there. But we'd like to think, Tom, that we're real close to 40. I'm leaving sometime in the middle of May, and we're pushing hard to get those in. The WRDA cutoff, probably the early date is somewhere around the end of May. But we have, in other times, the committees have been flexible, and we can still get reports in even in June and July. Once I sign them, they go to Mr. James. Both Mr. James and I are committed to be able to get everything in we can, so that the WRDA committee can be able to put those back in. I think what you'll find is that the double, most of these are, I think if we go to 40, I think you'll see the number somewhere probably close to double, probably around 20 billion. And at any given point, we would like to try to say, here's those ones that are coming in. We tell all of our stakeholders, we've got a list that shows here's the next 21 or whatever that still have to come. And our teams are pushing very, very hard to get all of these ready in what we call 3x3x3, deliver them in 3 years, and somewhere near close to a $3 million budget. Mr. James and I are ruthless on trying to get these done so that it's not a science project, but we get them as much as we can. I think the number today, this one here.
Sir, Sir, I want to be clear. You're looking for projects that have been authorized but have never had any money spent on them or invested on them?
Well, ones that don't have any appropriations, yeah.
Go ahead, Eddie.
Okay, yes, sir. So right now, that's $32.8 million worth of construction that's been authorized by Congress but have never had any funds applied to them to date.
Yeah, and Tom, let me turn that around and just say that it is our job in the Corps to continue to be ahead, to a degree, of the money flow. So while you might think that's bad news that we have projects that are not funded, we want to always give Congress options. So when Congress decides, the Congress and the President, so when they figure out, do we do a little bit more on flood control, a little bit more on ecosystem restoration, there are authorized projects on the shelf that they can pull off. And what we're seeing is that, again, just like this budget here, we'll continue to invest in some of those new projects every single year, take some more back off the shelf. So that's not a problem, and a viable project will continue to be a viable project. We continue to reevaluate these every 3 years and continue to be able to keep those on the shelf if need be. Mr. James, anything you want to add, or are we good, sir? I'm sorry, 32 billion, okay?
I was going to ask that, yeah. Right.
I probably did. Yeah, it's a billion, yeah.
Thanks, Tom.
Okay, operator, another question from the media online, if you have one.
That's all the questions I have at this time.
Okay, back to the room. Anybody would like to ask a question? I know we had a few up front here. Do we have a question up front? Rainey, we got one right here in the front row.
Thank you, sir. Amina Sayed with Bloomberg Environment. I noticed you had, there's a request of 200 million for the regulatory programs. And I'm wondering how that compares with the enacted levels and what you asked for last year. And is that an increase or the same level? And does this reflect the money the agency is going to use to implement the newly finalized Waters of the U.S. rule?
So the 200 million is consistent with funding from last year for 200 million. I think it's important to state, though, that we take extremely important the whole budget, the whole regulatory process. We have very hard metrics, and that is to get about 80% of our permits done in 60 days. We have exceeded our metrics. Today, we're about 84% when our metric's 80%. And that money is absolutely critical to be able to make sure we can process those permits. If there's a degradation in those funds, then we're going to have to start slowing down the processing of permits. So we're very pleased to see the 200 million. I can't guarantee that if we got more money, we'd be able to go faster because there's a certain amount of rigor that has to go into every one of those. And I think the end of your question was the ability to be able to address the change in the WOTUS law. Right now, we do not see a problem with our ability to do WOTUS with the funds that are available. Premature to say if that's too much, but we want to continue to be able to, if anything, and my personal desire would be maintain that level of funding and hopefully be able to even raise our metric if that's even in the realm of possible. People in America need permits done fast. And we're all into doing permits as fast, but you have to have the people on the payroll to be able to process those permits. And Eddie, if you want to correct me or Mr. James, feel free if there's anything else you want to add.
No, I just, one clarification from you. What was your question about WOTUS? Did it relate to the 200
Yes, I was just wondering if this money reflects what the agency will be doing in terms of implementing the new rule.
Okay, all right, I got you. It's our firm belief that when the new rule, WOTUS takes effect, that it will be easier and faster for the regulating community of this country in and outside the Corps to get things done. It's the thing about WOTUS is going to make it a clear choice of whether it's a waters of the United States or it's not a waters of the United States. So therefore, the regulating community can go out and determine that much easier than they could in the past. So my guess is, and my hope is, we get $200 million. That we can use toward regulating wetlands. That $200 million will be more than it was the 3 years before that. It will go further toward the regulating community because they can do more with the same money. That's my understanding. That's my belief.
Just a quick follow-up. So I'm just trying to make sure. What did you request last year? How much did you request last year?
I think 200 million.
Okay, and how much did you get appropriated?
210 million.
210 million. Okay, is that 10 million going to make a difference either way, this way or that way?
Well, I mean, every single dollar we get is able to make sure we can get the program done faster. So I'm not going to tell you that 10 million less is going to have absolutely no impact, that we would not be very good stewards of that money. I think our challenge is how do we continue to push our people to be able to have the same level of performance with the 200 million. Right now, I'm not sure that we have a significant challenge. It just incurs a little bit more risk with the ability to meet the metric.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions in the room? We
understanding that the budget estimates that the income from the 29-cent per gallon fuel tax for the Inland Waterway Trust Fund is $116 million this year. The proposed administration user fee is $180 million a year for 10 years, or $1.8 billion. So could you explain to me the public policy rationale for withdrawing that money from the economy and investing $0 in infrastructure for the Inland Waterway capital program?
And sir, can we get your name and
Mike
organization?
Toohey, Waterways Council. Question for Secretary James.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Tui, I made mention the first year I was here that the Inland Waterway Trust Fund is a very complicated issue that it doesn't seem to me like, now I'm in my third year, that anybody has figured out yet. Now, you ask why would we put more money on the users without using any of the trust fund money in the same year that we're raising it? And the answer actually is, and I don't like the answer I'm going to give you. Don't misunderstand me, but the answer is, I do think you understand we've got significant improvements to make in our infrastructure in the inland waterway system. The quicker the better in my book, but we've got them to make. And at that time, we're going to need more money in the trust fund in order to match for what we have to do on those locks and dams. I don't like that answer either, Jim. You know.
It's an answer. But is there a likelihood we're going to have to shut down the construction at Kentucky Lock and Chickamauga Lock if this proposal is adopted? Because they're under construction but not funded in the budget. And I was curious if there is carryover money that will sustain it, or that was the intention, or whether in fact we'll have to lay off people and shut down the projects.
I'm going to tell you from a non-money expert, in my opinion, we will not shut those down. That's what we're trying to do in the construction funds that we get, is to construct things to completion rather than just what you're talking about. We've all seen that. You and I have seen that on the Ohio River. It didn't work out very well. And we have got, and we're pushing and promoting, when we start, particularly in this instance, a lock and dam or major rehab or anything like that on the river system, is to finish it. Put the money to it and finish it. And that's what we will strive to do.
Okay, we have a question up here in the front. There we go.
Anna Norman, Congressional Research Service. I want to thank y'all for doing this and having the press books ready. I was wondering when the budget justification documents with the project-specific material will be out, and then when would the work plan for 2020 come out?
So I can answer that one. The work plan, the 2020 work plan, will be released later this afternoon. It'll be on the Corps website for all those that are interested. And the justification materials, we're gonna get the big machine cranked up and work on that. So it's quite a task, as you can imagine. So it'll take us a week or two to get all those, get through those, get those over to the Hill.
I have one more question too. We were talking about the amount of projects, the funds that projects that are authorized but have not had any money put towards them. But there's also the backlog number that y'all talk about that includes like dam safety modifications, et cetera. Can you give that overall number too? Thank you.
Eddie's going to give you this.
Yeah, that's a total of $64.5 billion for things that are under construction but not yet complete, the balance to complete, plus dam safety requirements.
So let me just clarify to a degree. Sometimes we get asked this in Congress, what's the over backlog? And the number we were using is somewhere in the vicinity of $96 billion. But we now really want to differentiate that that's really two different things. One is a project that really is old and breaking, and we've got to go back in and replace that. And that really is a broken backlog system. And then there might be another one where something we've never built, but is able to protect people, be able to restore an ecosystem that maybe we've never gone into. It's really a newer project in those chiefs reports. So that's one that's authorized, but not necessarily constructed. So that way it helps Congress understand how much is actually the broken backlog that we've got to be able to buy out. And what are other ones which are, I will call them opportunities for us to be able to make America even safer. And I think Mr. Stewart highlighted, and I do want to continue, and Mike too, it just goes back to your answer to a degree. This year was very, very tricky because we're working almost two different like budgets. You work on the FY21 budget, and therefore we had to finalize the FY20 work plan. So there could be a scenario where you're looking in the book, looking for a number, and there's no number there. And later today, you'll say, hey, that's in the work plan. Conversely, you might think that you got a number today and maybe it's not in the work plan, and it might or might not be. So it's really the combination of the two you got to look at side by side to really understand what is the totality of the impact on your state or your project that's out there. And so we wanted to focus this particular press release on the president's budget and roll out 21 and not necessarily get bogged down in the work plan. But those two are, it's not two groups of people in two different rooms that never talk. Every 15 or 20 minutes, those two were meshing to be able to make sure that the coordinated effort of both of those is where we think the right appropriation or that right amount of apportionment of money should go. Thanks an awful lot, Anna.
Any other questions in the room, please? Right there, Bill.
Hi, I'm Paul B. I have a question about I think it was WRDA 2016 that authorized in Section 1122 pilot projects for beneficial use, and I'm just curious as to what the status is. I know that the Corps had selected per WRDA projects for that program, and I'm curious as to where that is, whether there's any money in the budget, that kind of thing.
We did have some pilots, and then the Congress came back and increased the number of pilot programs that we could use. That's to me, it's vastly important. That's the problem we have with keeping our harbors and channels clean now, is what to do with the spoil material. And with these pilot projects, we're more free to find disposal areas and to utilize disposal areas. And so anyway, to answer your question, we're using those everywhere we can that we can identify them. The General Semonite may have some exact numbers and where.
I think 10 is the number we're at right now, and those have been approved, and we continue to work our way through what does that look like with respect to long term, how long do they take to get done, how much do they cost, and all that. So there's still a lot more to do on the pilots, but we do think that this is what I kind of said up front. How can we find some ways of doing things a little bit differently? The pilot opens that door, and debris removal, sediment management is a big deal, and that's what we hope to be able to learn something from some of the outcomes that comes out of these 10 pilots.
Okay, questions in the room? Up front here, Rainey, front row.
Hi, David Conrad with the Association of State Floodplain Managers. You commented that it looked like there is a fairly good balance for addressing the disasters from 2016 and 2018. How does that relate to projected costs associated with the Missouri River repairs? And could you speak a little bit to the situation there? What are we looking at for 2021?
I'll start off, and I'll let either Mr. James or Mr. Belk jump in. So we were very excited about the way not only the money came through, but the way the legislation was drafted by Congress. It actually said, "Hey, Cora, where's the worst place that happened from?" I'm mainly talking Harvey, Irma, and Maria was the first big one. You know, the BBA, 17.4 billion. But it gave us some flexibility and said, "Hey, here's the way that you can put some money here, some ability to have a little bit more flexibility in how we did that." The second one was about 3.3 billion that I think mainly came from from Florence and from Michael. Okay, so that money is in the core now, and we're in the process of building that. It's going to take us a while because some of these projects we've got to go get real estate. You've got to go through the investigative study. You got to do the work. So some of this could be 3 or 4 or 5 years to be able to get that all put in the ground. We would anticipate, and I'm certainly no idea, but I would guess that if there are valid requirements coming out of Missouri, Arkansas, and Mississippi, we know that there's been levees breaking, then at some point that could have the potential to roll into another supplemental, and we would then hope that Congress would give us the same type flexibilities. Here's a good example. If there's 100 levees that need to be fixed, and everyone is pigeonholed a certain amount of money to go to levy 15 gets X amount of money, and if there's anything left over, you can't, some projects you come in a little bit high, some come a little bit low. The ability to manage the program gives us so much more flexibility, and we can do it a lot smarter. So that's where we would ask that whatever that, if in fact there was a supplemental, and if in fact we got that, that would then come back. I don't think I have a good feel for the order of magnitude right now. And I think that's something that we've just got to, our guys are still on the ground. Some of these, we haven't actually even finished the final repairs on them. And even today, they're under risk of floods again. That last year, wettest year in 124 years in that system, and just massive devastation. The amount of personal pain that those poor Americans had to go through with that flooding was immense. And our job is to do whatever we can to rebuild and make it as resilient as possible. Eddie or Mr. James, anything you want to add?
Okay, any other questions in the room? Operator, are there any questions online? Any more?
Again, pressing pound 2 will indicate that you wish to ask a question. I have none on at this time.
Okay, we have one more follow-up here, or another. Just 2 more, and that should be it for the day.
I apologize for this. Amina Sayed again with Bloomberg Environment. And I'm just looking at the congressional justification now, but there was this line about reforming the Inland Waterways Program, and there was a big number, 1.8 million attached to it. What exactly is that, and how are you proposing to reform that?
So if my team of talented experts can't get you an answer in 2 or 3 minutes, stay around and we'll find an answer this afternoon. You're saying 1.8 million? Billion, okay.
Okay. Do you want to answer? Okay, we will follow up. We've got something close for you, but right afterwards. Okay, and one question here.
John Doyle with the Jones Walker Law Firm. Mr. Secretary, of the $2 billion, more than $2 billion in the construction account, what percentage of that is being invested in the nation's inland waterway transportation system, the nation's lock and dam system?
Bear with me, please.
Maybe I can help. It's less than 1%. And of that amount, what percent is for expenditures, not deficiency corrections? It's virtually zero. I've heard you mention in the past how complicated the Inland Waterway Trust Fund is. Maybe I can help. There was roughly $55 million in the trust fund at the beginning of this fiscal year. You're proposing in your budget for FY21 to add roughly $300 million to that figure. So at the end of FY21, there'll be roughly $350 million available in the trust fund. How much of that is being recommended to be spent on ongoing projects that roughly need $600 or $700 million to finish them and have already had hundreds of millions, over $500 million spent on them? The answer is zero. So maybe the concept that's missing is when you generate the funds and have them available, you have to spend them in order to accomplish the objective that you say you have, which is to complete important national projects.
Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, I think that wraps up our questions in the room. And operator, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here today. We'll have closing comments here from General Semonite and Mr. James.
No, I think there's obviously a lot of questions. What we want to do is continue to work with you. Tell us your frustrations. Once you see the work plan, come let us know, and we're more than happy to either meet at the district level or division level, but want to continue to lay the numbers out and tell you as much as we can on how we get to those numbers. Mr. James?
Thank all of you for being here today. For those of you that we did not answer your question at all, apologize for that. For those of you that didn't get a complete answer, I do wish you would contact us and allow us the ability to give you that answer. This day and this time spent is well worth. You know, we may sit here and try to do the work, but if you people that are either interested in the program or want to distribute what's going on in the program weren't here, this would be a sad occasion if we sit up here and slapped each other's backs and told each other how good we're doing. So never feel, from my perspective, never feel like you hurt my feelings, or if you ask me a question that I can't answer, it's not because that I'm not trying to do the work for this nation to get all of our inland waterway infrastructure, ecosystem, and flood control business in grasp and in hand. But anyway, thank you for your participation, and feel free to contact me or General Semonite at any time to get more information if you need it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. That's a wrap. Thank you so much. Operator, thank you, and have a good day.